Summer loving had me a blast.
Summer loving happened so fast.
I met a girl crazy for me.
Want to welcome everybody to some product release highlights that we've been working on this summer at Jirav, and we've been having a blast over here. My name is Mark Gershman, and I'm with Learning and Education over at Jirav. And with me, I have Shreyas. Shreyas, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hey everyone, I'm Shreyas Mecheri. I lead product marketing here at Jirav, and that means I get to tell you about all the exciting stuff we've been building here for you.
Well, exciting stuff, Shreyas. Where's your blonde wig for today? I thought you were going to look like Olivia Newton-John. I try to do my best over here. Rydell High School, of course, was the center point of the movie Grease. And what we have going on at our fictitious high school over here is a summer enrichment program. We can have financial statements that focus on the past, but we want to do some planning for the future. And as we go ahead and we start looking at the future, we're going to be looking at two aspects over here that we'd like to share with you. As far as the two ways of growing our revenue, we could go ahead and hire instructors. I'm with Learning and Education. Does it make sense to hire instructors, and what would the impact be on gross margins if we did that? Another thing we could do is focus on Shreyas's area, which is marketing. You know, we could go ahead and we could increase marketing, and maybe there wouldn't be a huge impact on gross margins. So we could take a look at our net income in that way. We're going to use our fictitious company of Rydell High School to find out all about that.
And then, using that fictional company, we are going to walk through the most important parts of Jirav with our planning updates, our reporting enhancement, and finally, we'll wrap it up with something that's coming down the pipeline for you.
We've actually built in an error healing function, and we're going to go ahead and show that to you because we've been listening to what you want. That's going to be something we're going to be looking at. Another thing that we're doing here at Jirav is taking a look at workforce. You know, Jirav is really good with multiple sets of data. Accounting data by itself is perfect. You know, we really can do a lot of planning with that. But if we can start to import in human resource, you know, workforce, staffing data, in addition to accounting data, we can really start to fine tune our forecasts. Also, we've got these two cool new features that we've rolled out that many of our customers are working with right now. One is the auto forecast feature, and the other is the auto roll forward feature. And just take a look at Rydell High over here. So Rydell High has a dashboard, and Shreyas is going to be diving deeper into both the dashboard, and she's also going to be diving deeper into the reports. When she dives deeper into the reports, I know that there's one report, the balance sheet, and the balance sheet should never be out of balance. And yet we are out of balance. This would be good use of Jirav's auto healing feature. I can actually identify over here a starting point where something actually happened, where it became out of balance. Now, how did this come out of balance over here in April? Let me go ahead and go back into settings and click on company. And if I just take a look at our accounting tab over here, I can see that this is set to automatically bring in the data. Now, one thing that's cool with Jirav, if you're not using it right now, and I want to go ahead and call your attention to it, is these little information bubbles. These little information bubbles will always tell you what you need to know. So do you see over here how our information bubble is saying, if you're going to be automatically bringing in data, we're going to go back 60 days. So 60 days worth of data normally is all you need. But what if you were in QuickBooks or Xero or Sage Intacct or NetSuite, and you never closed up a period over there and you did a prior period adjustment? Like, let's say on April Fool's Day. Did you notice we went out of balance in April? So on April Fool's Day, if somebody went ahead and actually did a prior period adjustment way back before the summer,
Well, it would create an out of balance scenario by only going back the prescribed 60 days of hindsight. However, this out of balance scenario is now automatically tracked by Jirav and automatically heals on the very next daily automatic import by importing in all of the necessary accounting balance data. Tell you what, let's look at the balance sheet again after the next daily automatic import of accounting data. We'll see that going back to the April Fool's Day before the summer is now in balance.
And if I were to go back and take a look at our balance sheet, nothing's out of balance anymore. I could even verify that my total assets equal my total liabilities plus my equity at any point in time over here. When we think about this out of balance error healing feature, that's all you need to do to throw yourself back into balance again. But accounting is just one area of actuals. We also have workforce, right? So if I come over here, I'm going to go back into my settings. Actuals is where you're always bringing in your data. Whenever you're importing data, you go to actuals. So I've got workforce. You might not even be working with any of these products over here. You may be working with a separate workforce software. Maybe you're just managing something manually. So I've got these employees listed over here with their job titles. We could see when they were hired. If they were terminated, I would have their dates over here as well as their job titles, and I could see how much they're being compensated throughout the year. So can I bring in this data? Simple. All I have to do is upload it, import, and it's in here right now. If I were to go back to those same reports we were looking at before, like the income statement over here, we're going to see that my forecast is already starting. As we start to go ahead and use Jirav's auto forecasting feature, we can actually see other items populate over here. So we just went ahead and looked at the first two items. Shreyas, are you ready for me to go into auto forecasting?
Yes, I am.
I bet you are. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. Forecasting is simply a part of a plan. And if I were to go to my plans over here, I could turn auto forecasting on for one plan or all of my plans that are out here. How do I do it? Well, when I'm looking at my plans and I look at the right rail area of my screen, and on the right side of your computer, that's where you're going to see something called the right rail. You'll notice that there's an auto forecasting feature. Go over here and just click on it. All I need to do is to slide this to the on position. Once it's slid to the on position, auto forecasting is turned on. I'll click on save. And we can see over here right now that we are now forecasting for revenue going straight across. Same thing's going to be true of my cost of services, as well as operating expenses and other as well. My balance sheet is being forecasted as well. If I go back over to my reports and take a look at the income statement, we could see that we now have forecasts going straight across. If my plan is going all the way through 2025, we can see what my net income is going to be like at any point in time, just based upon the auto forecast. The auto forecast is really a very cool feature that's using logarithms based upon artificial intelligence. You could still go ahead and use your own standard planning like you wanted to do in the past. And how would you do that? Come to these training classes that I do. I'm always happy to go ahead and to dive deeper into that with you. We're just looking at some of the newer features right now. So auto forecast is one of the AI features. We also have auto roll forwarding. So I could see that I'm tracking actuals through July. But when July becomes August and August becomes September and September becomes October, and I have that actual data that I want to go ahead and bring on in, can I get Giraffe to do that automatically? Just so I don't have to do anything behind the scenes? Without a doubt, you can go ahead and do that. I'm just going to go back over to my plans again. Any plan can be managed to automatically roll forward. All you got to do is click on Manage Plans, and notice there's the Auto Roll Forward slider. If I go ahead and if I just slide this to the on position, look at what happens to this word off, as well as my actuals period and my forecast period. So when I slide it to the on position, I can now designate what day of the next month do I want to automatically roll forward. So if you're working with a dozen or 100 different clients at your firm and you want them all to roll forward on a specific date, you can go ahead and you can just specify that date over here. If you want them to do different dates, you could specify any dates you want for any plans that you want. And if you still wanted to go ahead and to manage it manually, you can just put it into the off position and you can manage it manually over here. You've got all of these different options of working with Giraffe. So over here, you've seen me talk about the AI features of Forecast and Roll Forward. We took a look at the Excel Workforce Template download, as well as the out of balance error healing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to magnify this screen up again. And Shreyas, I think it's time for you to go ahead and talk about some reporting enhancements. What do you think?
Thank you, Mark. Yes, so after all that great planning and forecasting, it's going to be time to present your work as a deliverable to your stakeholders. That could be the board for the school, or it could be internal teams. The reporting section and what I'll walk through is really about how do you make it better so that you're able to tell that story to the team. Let's talk through those features here, which are going to be how do you add color and add context to your dashboard tiles? 2, which is my favorite, how do you add things like better text formatting and emojis to your report to really tell the story of what's going on? Then, how do you add context to your reports with footnotes and flexibility around how you add those footnotes? And then finally, once you have added formatting in your reports and tables to make them clear to understand, how you can export them to Excel as you share them with people. Here we are in the dashboard section. The dashboard section is excellent for tracking the KPIs or the key performance indicators that you want to keep an eye on through the year. So here we have our enrollment revenue, our cost of sales, and also our gross margin. A new feature we have added in here is the ability to change the name of your dashboard tile to be longer. Maybe instead of enrollment revenue, I want to call this enrollment revenue from all channels so that it's clear and gives more context to what's happening in this dashboard tile. Now you can do that in Giraffe. Another piece. I like this chart here, but people might want to know exactly how much is the revenue in May. With this show values checkbox, you can now add that label in any data chart. Finally, maybe your preferred color for your dashboard tiles is blue because that's the brand of the school. You can now choose to have a specific color for your dashboard tiles instead of going with what we have chosen for you as a default color. So what I just did was update the name of this dashboard tile to make more sense, add data labels to give it precise context, and then finally updated the colors to match the brand that I have in mind. With a quick save, now this dashboard tile is so much better than what it was before. Okay, next up, we have our report. And what I mentioned was my favorite new feature, adding emojis and rich text. Now, that might seem like something kind of trivial. However, the report that you deliver to stakeholders, one example here, has your statements, has your recommendations, and is really something you want to be proud of when you take it out to people. Previously, you might have delivered your recommendation in plain text like this. With our new formatting features, you can use rich text in your text sections, and you can even add emojis to really drive impact with the story you're trying to tell around the numbers. So as you can see here, I called out that we have enrollment revenue going up. Gross margin is slightly down, but within our goal range. And then I am calling out with a big red flag that advertising and marketing spend has been flat. In our recommendations, we are talking about the fact that there was a new marketing director hire, and by increasing that marketing and advertising spend, we might be able to get back to some of those goals we had in mind. This is something that I'm putting a pin in to discuss, and especially for our accounting firms who are having those advisory conversations, this is the springboard for you to get into those discussions. So quickly, you can see how I was able to just make the recommendation look better with better formatting and images. And the best part is all of this will export to your PDF if you're choosing to send that as a PDF export to your client. Next, we are going to look at some of that additional context we can add in a report with things like footnotes and notes. Let's go to our gross margin analysis here. Our gross margin analysis here is really diving into what Mark mentioned earlier. How are we tracking with our expenses? How are we tracking with our revenue? And you as an advisor have added some notes here around how things are going. July enrollments are looking good. Training costs are rising, but that was expected. As you're exporting this to PDF, you can choose to keep these in this format at the side of the table, or if you want to save space, you can move it to the bottom of the export. Let's look at what that looks like. When I go here to export as a PDF, I go to PDF settings, and then my gross margin section, I can either choose to make it landscape and keep it inline so that we have a PDF which looks like this. And it's a personal preference. I actually like to have a portrait view. I could go in and say, actually, make it something that is more of a portrait view and make those notes calling out what happened in July at the bottom of the PDF. And now you have a view which does exactly that. Again, it's a preference for you, but Jirav gives you the flexibility to change how those notes appear. All right, so as a firm, I might also have footnotes that I want to put at the bottom of every single report section. That might be things like disclaimers or just text that all firms like to have at the bottom of their report. With Jirav, you can choose to put it in all sections or specific sections of the report. Let's see how you do that. You would go into your report settings, and in report settings, you can show footnotes in all sections, not at all, or all sections except cover, or in selected sections, you can go in and say, hey, actually, I only want my disclaimer here to show up on the table of contents and the KPI glossary. And now that tiny little disclaimer, which is separate from the notes that you're adding to every single section, will show up in the footnote section. All right. So we walked through the dashboard tiles, we walked through the rich text and emoji, how you can add better context with notes and footnotes. The final thing I'm going to show you is how you can export these reports to Google Sheets or Excel. We prefer that you bring your client or your stakeholder into Jirav and use the share functionality in Jirav to have those conversations. But we do understand that sometimes you do need to export your work into Excel. Well, now if you do that and you choose to have formatting like colored header rows, bold text, maybe a different color for your subtotal, you can export that into Excel, and that will carry through when you do that. Here's an example of an export I did previously of my report, and you can see that the header row colors and the subtotal row colors match exactly what I had in my report. This just helps you if you have a preference around how your reports show up and want them to look more professional. You can carry that into your exports.
Jirav is becoming more intuitive and faster in so many aspects. Onboarding task, which is on the left side of our screen right now, is something that's actually built into Jirav right now that's come along for the ride in Juice Squared. And what onboarding tasks is all about is to help you get started in a very intuitive and fast way. You know, sometimes when you're working with software, it's nice to work with a wizard that's recommending steps to you as you go through it. That's exactly what this checklist is over here, a checklist to help you get started. And what's the next thing you do? Well, you want to import in your accounting information. That's the general ledger checkbox. What do you do after that? You saw me import in Workforce. I can import in Workforce off of an Excel template. That's what staffing's all about. We already are showing you another dimension over here, departments you can bring on in. And departments is just going to be one of many dimensions that you can work with in Jirav. And as you're going through company settings and receivables and payables and turning on the auto forecast and the auto roll forward and reporting and dashboarding your way through Jirav, you can see that we've got a checklist over here that's a wizard that really helps us be intuitive and faster as we're helping our clients. Shreyas, I'm going to bounce it back to you for the right side of the screen.
Right. Thank you, Mark. Yes, so Juice Square is our internal name for how we are really juicing up the calculation engine that sits under Jirav. What do I mean by that? All of you who are using Jirav right now would have noticed that your calculations and your reporting, everything is happening a lot faster. We have spent a lot of time and investment in really redoing how you can have those calculations done in Jirav. Things are going faster, but they are also going to expand what you are able to do in Jirav. You are going to see the ability to have a lot more departments for your calculation. You are also going to see the ability to report with multiple columns. Instead of reporting just by last year, I want to report and check variance against last year, against budget, and forecast. Giving you a lot more that you can do in Jirav, and that is all coming down the road. The way I like to see it is you will see Jirav going at a cheetah speed. So with that, I want to turn it back to Mark here.
Thank you, Sandy. Thank you, Sandy. Yeah, I do have my leather coat. I got to tell you, it's the summer. I don't know how these people in the 50s wore leather coats all the time. It is hot. So, Shreyas, I think in the fall, we need to come up with another theme that's more scholastic as well, too. It was really fun for Shreyas and I to get together to go over the planning updates, reporting enhancements, and being more intuitive, to be increasingly faster, because that's what it's all about. Nobody's got a crystal ball that looks into the future, but can you make decisions with greater confidence? Absolutely. And that's what Jirav is all about. That's what planning and analysis is all about. My name is Mark Gershman. You see my email address over there. Hopefully I'll see you in future learning and education classes. Shreyas?
Thank you. Yeah. And if you have any suggestions or feedback for us, or have other ideas for how you'd like to see product updates, let me know. My email address is there as well. Thank you.